Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. I'm Mr. White. This is going to be lesson 9-4. This is going to be our first attempt into solving quadratics. Okay, we're going to use the zero product property, or in other words, according to the title, we're going to find our roots. So another name is, we're looking for our roots, our solutions, or our x-intercepts. Here we go. If I need to find the value of each expression, if we look at 1a, we're going to go 3 times 0, that is 0. If we go to b, negative 16 times 0, we also get 0. If we take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.789 times 0, don't think too much, that is also 0. Okay, if we take 0 times 28.7, well, the 0's first. No, that's still 0. If we take 0 times any number, or any number times 0, we will always get 0. So is there any other way to make the answer 0 other than to make one of the numbers 0? No. So question 1 is going to illustrate what is known as the zero product property. Zero product property. To the right. This is when multiplying two numbers, the only way to get the product to be 0 is for one of the numbers to be 0. So if we have A times B, and we want that to be equal to 0, there's two things that need to be known. Or we need to know that one of these factors has to be 0. So we can let A equal 0, or we can let B equal 0. And if one of them is 0, then no matter what we plug in for the other variable, we will always get 0 when we multiply. So when we look at number 2, A, in each factored expression, what values for the variable would make the equation true? So these values are the solutions to the equations that we're looking for, or the roots, or the x-intercepts. So what we're trying to do is we have x times x minus 2 equals 0. We need to figure out what can we plug in for x to make it 0, because we know that this needs to be 0, or we know that x minus 2 needs to be 0. So the best thing to do is just take both factors and set them equal to 0. And the good thing is when we take this first one, this x, and we say if x equals 0, or if we take x minus 2 equals 0. Well, our first answer is already equal to 0, so we know that x equals 0 is one solution, or one answer. Or, in order to solve for x for the x minus 2, we're going to have to add 2 over to both sides. Okay, when we do that, we get x equals positive 2. So if we plug in 2 to x, we should get an answer for 0. Or if we plug in 0, well, let's plug in 0. You get 0 times 0 minus 2 should equal 0. 0 times negative 2 equals 0. Correct. If we plug in 2, we get 2 times 2 minus 2 equals 0. 2 times 0 equals 0. So both answers will become 0. All right, let's skip down. Letter C. What if we have a binomial times a binomial? Well, again, they are the factors, and inside we have an x plus 1 and an x minus 3. We need to figure out, well, what can we plug in to this x plus 1 to make it 0? What could we plug in for x to make x minus 3 equal 0? Best thing to do, set x plus 1 equal to 0, or x minus 3 equals 0. Both equations now, we're going to move and get x by itself. So let's subtract 1. Let's add 3. By doing that, we're going to get x should equal negative 1, or x will equal positive 3. So then if we go back in and we plug in negative 1 plus 1 is 0. So 0 times anything will give us 0. All right, let's skip to F. Woo! Question mark. What is he thinking? He's thinking, well, again, how many factors do we have? Hopefully you're thinking 3. There's an x times an x plus 7 times an x minus 9. So we need to take all 3 factors and set them equal to 0. So the first one, we're going to say, okay, x can equal 0, or x plus 7 should equal 0, or x minus 9 should equal 0. Now let's solve. Well, the first one's already solved for. So we know one of our answers is 0. If we take and subtract the 7 over, we're going to get x equals negative 7. And if we take and add the 9 over, we're going to get x equals 9. So there's our 3 solutions. We could have 0 for an answer, or we could have negative 7 for an answer, or x equals 9 for an answer. All right, what you're going to do, you're going to hit pause. You're going to do and finish B, D, and E. Check back in a few minutes, see if you have the correct answers. Make sure you show your work. Go. Welcome back, peoples. What you should see is on B, you should get two answers, x is equal to 0 and x is equal to -4. For letter D, you should get x equals 6 or x equals 4. For letter E, you should have gotten x equals -5 because you had two factors, both were the same, so you only had to set one equal to 0, and you only get one -5. Next page. All right, we're going to do some more lesson 9.4 or 9-4. We're going to solve by factoring. We're going to take what we just worked on in terms of where we had the factors and we're going to set them equal to 0 to go back a step, and we're going to take and ask ourselves, well, what if we have this ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0? Now we're going to have to try and factor that and then go back to what we just did on the last page, set those factors equal to 0. Okay, this is skill 16, and we need to ask ourselves 4 steps. Okay, the first thing is it in standard form? Because we need to put it in standard form if it's not. Okay, then we're going to try and factor that quadratic expression, and then we're going to identify the values of that variable that make each part equal to 0, and then we want to check our answer by substituting the solutions back into the original equation. There is an example. This solve x squared plus 7x minus 6. Please check the example to see if you have any quick questions on the steps from 1 to 4. But we're going to proceed down to number 1. Okay, we're going to use the process described above to solve this equation. We need to look at number 1 and ask ourselves, is it in standard form? And we have the a squared plus 4a plus 3 that is set equal to 0. So yes, it's in standard form. So the next thing that we're going to do is we need to try and factor this expression. So we're going to draw our x. We're going to multiply that 1 times the 3 and get 3, and then we're going to take the b term and put it in the middle. So we need to know what times what equals 3 but adds to get 4, and hopefully that's a little easier one where we can say, okay, it's 1 and 3. So now we're going to take that, fill in our box, we put the a squared here, we still keep that 3, and then we fill in these 1 and 3 with 1a and 3a. So now we're going to take and we're going to factor out going from right to left. Okay, if we go this way, notice the only thing we could take out is an a, and if we go down, nothing goes into those two, so the only thing we really have is a plus 1. If we go up to the top, the only thing we could take out of there is a positive a, and if we go to the next one, the only thing we can take out of is a 3. So if we put those together, we have a plus 3 times a plus 1, and then that should be set equal to 0. Remember to set these equations equal to 0, otherwise we don't have an equation anymore. Now we just have factors. Going back to the last chapter. So now we're going to take our factors, we're going to set them x plus 3 equals 0, or a plus 1 is equal to 0, and then you need to solve for a. Or what can we plug in for a to make that left side 0? Well, if we just subtract 3, and then on the other one, subtract 1 and subtract 1, we're going to get a is equal to -3, box that, and we're going to get a is equal to -1. So the next thing we want to do is we want to plug these back in to the original equation up here, and we want to check and see, are we right? So if we take the first one, we'll just do it at the top up here. If we take -3, put parentheses around it, and we square that, and we put plus 4 times -3 plus 3, that should be equal to 0. Well, 3 squared is 9, or -3 squared, same thing. And then we got minus 12 plus 3. 9 minus 12 is -3. -3 plus 3 is equal to 0. So that checks out. So we know a is equal to -3. That is one of our solutions. If we take the other one and plug it in over here, -1, we're going to go -1 squared plus 4 times -1 plus 3 equals 0. -1 squared is 1 minus 4 plus 3 equals 0. 1 minus 4 is -3. -3 plus -3 is 0. So that checks out. All right, let's jump down to number 4. Is there anything we can factor out? No, because of the 1d squared, and the 9 doesn't have a d. So we're going to go to our x box. 1 times 9 gives us 9 on top. We have a -6. So we need what times what equals 9, but adds to get -6. Hopefully you're thinking -3 and -3. So we put the original one. So we have d squared We put the 9 in the lower right, and then we take our negative 3d and our negative 3d and put those. So that fulfills the area inside the boxes. Now we're going to factor out. Let's go from right to left on top. If we go this way, we can only take out a positive d. And if we go on the bottom, notice the negative 3d is negative. So we do have to take out a negative, and it is a negative 3. If we go from the bottom to the top, the only thing we could take out is a d. This is a positive d squared, highest degree, so take out a positive d. But when we go to the next side, we can take out a negative 3. So if we put these together, we'll have d minus 3 times d minus 3, or d minus 3 squared. Since we have two of those, all we really have to do to find our solution is we're just going to set one of them equal to 0, and when you add the 3 over, you're going to get d is equal to positive 3. If we double check, let's plug it back into the original. We're going to take 3 squared minus 6 times 3 plus 9, and it should be equal to 0. 9 minus 18 is negative 9, and we still have that plus 9. Negative 9 plus 9 is 0, so that works out. All right, your turn. What you're going to do is you're going to hit pause. You're going to do 2 and 3. Check back in a few minutes. Go. All right, welcome back. Again, make sure you have the two factors. Make sure you set the factors equal to 0. And what goes in for B on number 2 that you can get to 0, either one of the factors. And the answer was 5 or negative 2. Same thing on 3. You should have gotten negative 5 and negative 2. Congratulations. Let's do some more complicated ones. Next page. All right, let's look at number 6. All right, remember, steps. Okay, is it in standard form? The answer is yes. It is all set equal to 0. Okay, the next thing now, we went to factor. Remember, greatest common factor is always first. The last page we didn't really have that because we had a coefficient of 1 on the f squared or the g squared or the a squared or the b squared. But this one, can we take out a number? We have 8, 7. Right there, you should see there is no numbers that we can take out. Okay, and also the negative 18 does not have an f, so there isn't anything we can factor out first. So we immediately are going to look at, can we Xbox this? So we're going to go 8 times the negative 18. Okay, that's going to give us negative 144. And then we bring down that 7. Okay, I know these are big numbers, but again, that's where our multiplication gets better. We're going to think, what times what equals negative 144, but adds to get 7? Well, the first two numbers off the top of my head are obviously 12 and 12. Okay, but let's start basic. We have 1 and 144. Okay, that's not going to work. 2 and 72. That's not going to work. We can go 3 and 47. No, that's not going to work. And as you keep going, you should see that the answer is 16 and 9. Now, we need a negative, so one of them has to be negative, and we want the 7 to be positive, so we got to put the negative on the 9. Yay. So now let's fill in our box. We know that this is 8f squared. We have 16f. We have negative 9f. And we have negative 18. Now factor out. Okay, let's go from right to left on the top. There isn't anything we could take out other than an f. So we have an f. And then between 16 and 18, what could we take out? Okay, the only thing we can take out is a 2. So right now we have an f plus 2. If we go from bottom to top with the 8f squared, you can take out an 8f. And notice, because the next one, the negative 9, is a negative, we're going to take out a negative 9 that goes into both of those terms. So we have 8f minus 9 times f plus 2, and set that equal to 0. And there's our factors. Okay. Now we're going to take those factors, just like the last two pages. We're going to set them equal to 0. And f plus 2 equals 0. Okay, and now solve for f. By solving for f on the first one, we're going to add 9. Okay, and then we need to divide by 8. So by adding 9 and divide them by 8, we get f is equal to 9/8, which is one of the solutions. And then when we subtract 2, we're going to get f is equal to -2. What do you notice about number 10? Hopefully you're thinking, okay, 1 is not set equal to 0, and 2, there's only 2 terms. 2 terms is okay. Let's subtract the 16 over. Okay? These are not like terms, so we still have 4k squared minus 16 equals 0. Okay? If you notice, the 0k is missing. But before we even do that, remember, greatest common factor. We can take out a 4, or realistically, we can divide. Because it's set equal to 0, we're solving. So if we divide out a 4, we're going to be left with k squared minus 4 equals 0. Okay, that's much easier to factor. Or in other words, we have k squared plus 0k minus 4 equals 0. We're trying to think, what times what equals -4, but adds to get 0? And some of you can see that. If you can, go through those progressions. We have a 2 and a -2. So if we were to put this in, we're going to have k squared. We have minus 2k plus 2k minus 4. When we factor out, you should get k plus 2, k minus 2. Okay, so our factors are k minus 2 times k plus 2 is equal to 0. Set those equal to 0, and we're going to get solve for k. So you should have gotten k equals 2 or k equals -2. Let's get down to number 16 here. All right, again, we're going to look at our quadratic. The highest degree is a 2. We're going to subtract the 12s. By subtracting the 12s, we now put this in standard form. We'll get 9s squared minus 12s plus 4 equals 0. Okay. It is in standard form. Is there anything in common we can factor out? And we have a 9s squared, 12s, 4. No. Okay. So now we're going to look to factor. So 9 times 4 is 36, -12. What times what equals 36 but adds to get -12? Hopefully you're thinking -6 and -6. So we're going to immediately put those here. And we drop in the 9s squared and the 4. Looking to factor. Top boxes. We can actually take out a 3s. And because this -6s is here, we're going to have to take out a negative. And I think the only thing you can take out is a -2. If we go up and down, you can take out a 3s and again a -2. So when we factor this, we get 3s minus 2 times 3s minus 2. That should be equal to 0. Notice both factors are the same, so we can go 3s minus 2 equals 0 only one time. We're going to add 2 to both sides. Get 3s equals 2. When you divide by 3, you get s is equal to 2/3. All right, go ahead, hit pause. We're going to finish the rest of these problems. If you get stuck, just make sure you follow the steps. Remember, standard form, greatest common factor, factor out, and then set equal to 0 using zero product property. Go. All right, welcome back. Go ahead, check the rest of your answers, 5, 7, 8, 9, and the rest. Again, making sure that if you plug them back into the original equation, for instance, number 7, you should get equal to 6. So always check your answers. And if you still have questions, please ask us right away. And congratulations. Hope you have a wonderful morning, day, or night. Always remember, do your best, forget the rest. Bye 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 for now.